couple of them I actually know, and friends who are joining us from wherever on Facebook and on YouTube. Welcome everybody. This is kind of an unusual event, all in all, but it's kind of the situation is even more unusual for me because I can actually see many faces. This is amazing. It's very nice. I can see your reactions, so please be kind. Let's start with a little bit of context. What are we going to do tonight? And then the larger context. What is life? What we're going to do tonight is we're going to ask and answer questions about what you've already experienced so far in the self-study course, Kabbalah Revealed Interactive, and any questions that you may have in general about Kabbalah, about how questions about how life works and how that's related to Kabbalah, how it unfolds, what the path is about, what you can expect, all of those sorts of things. Questions that came up obviously while we were studying. And Dina, this is Dina.
Hello, everyone.
And she and I will be getting your questions and answering them. Now the context for this is that what you've been studying so far, if you're one of the students on Zoom, is you're kind of in the foothills of the process, of the method of Kabbalah. Kabbalah is a very deep and extensive method. I mean, it's actually a very simple method, but there are many things that we do in order to learn and to unlearn. And what we're learning is how the larger system of nature is constructed, how we're constructed, what our part is in that. You know, what it really means when we hear that something is integral, that it is holistic, that that nature is completely caring, concerned, and connected to absolutely everything. What does it mean to be part of a vast and total environment, and what's our role in it? How do we reveal our connection in it? What is it that connects us to it? What disconnects us from it? These are practical matters, but it takes time and it takes work on the transformation that we need to go through. And there are a lot of assumptions that we have when we begin, that we all have, because there's a beginning point, there's a path, and then there's an end point of total connection and identification with this system of nature. That is, understanding the forces that guide our life and where they really are, how we come into contact with them, and then what do we do as we come into contact with them? What sorts of changes should we be expecting in our perception, in our lives? Why? Today it's different than it was even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, or let's say a century ago. People for the last, during the 20th century and before that, really thought of this type of work as mysticism. But we know today, because science can already penetrate to a certain degree, not to the place of causes, but it can penetrate to the point in which it can see that there is a holistic system, that there's no part of anything that can be moved or managed or played with that doesn't have an effect, a rippling effect across absolutely everything. Thing is, we don't really know how that works or how we should be dealing with things. But this is what, in an environment like that where everything is totally interconnected, this is what Kabbalah is about. It's a science of that place, that sort of upper, what we call like an upper realm, or the governing laws of nature that really determine the kind of experience that we have. But there's a lot that we need to know in order to gain sensibility of this, right? So the context here is that we have begun working with the basic principles on which we begin to pivot our experience, our understanding, but more importantly, our attitude towards things, our ability to penetrate. Because what we have to do is determine what is keeping us in the kind of perceptions that we have, and what allows us to move out of them. There are a few things that we've dealt with so far in your self-study, interactive experience, but there's many things, and it becomes a broader and broader road, deeper, more beautiful, more inclusive, less lonely, and fulfilling. You've begun a journey, and it's a journey, it's a life journey. It's something, we say study, but study doesn't mean I did this course, and I'm done. Study means something that happens in a person's heart where they appreciate, they look at, they feel, they identify with life. That is the study of life, the beauty of things, how they work, how they interact, and it's an ongoing path of life. It's something we start individually, but it's really something that leads us into a kind of total interconnection, not only with the system, but the way to the system is through our connection with others. This is a really key thing, not so obvious as we begin. Anyway, those are a few hints of where we're actually going and where a lot of these answers are going to be coming from. So, you know how we're going to do this. When we go to questions from here, I'll be looking for whose hand's up, and I'll just ask you to speak, and then you and I will interact.
And we've got our first question.
Great.
Okay, so Mike from Australia is asking.
Where's this coming from? We don't know?
Don't think that. No, I don't have that.
Okay.
Either Facebook or YouTube. We had some issues, but it's solved now. So
Good.
The streaming is good. So Mike from Australia is asking, how does Kabbalah help us to move out of our current level of perception?
Well, first of all, it is the only way to move out of our current level of perception, because it helps us find that the issue, the aspect of us that we really pay very little attention to. And even when it's pointed out to us, it's very hard for us to maintain our kind of connection to the perception of this thing. What Kabbalah teaches us is what is the issue that prevents us from gaining a complete kind of grasp of our reality and influencing it. It tells us what it is, and then it tells us how to work with what it is. Basically, it teaches us how to identify a quality within us, which is doing this. And this is a quality that we call egotism. It's got to do with an intention of why we do things. It's not there we're not trying to destroy it, but we're trying to understand what it is, and that it's an ongoing force. It's one of the governing forces, actually, behind nature, but it's not the only one. Our civilization has been evolving actually by two forces, and life has been evolving in that way too. But we have really aligned ourselves only with one of them, which is this force of disconnection. It's useful, it's good, it's not a bad thing, but it has to be balanced, and it has to be used to sling us into a different type of perception. It is a method that precisely describes how to recognize, how to use this, and then how do I find this other force that balances it. It is this other force that allows us to exit a kind of incarceration into this single force. It frees us from functioning in a mechanical way, and it brings us into a state that you could call freedom or free will. It allows us to use our free will, where at the moment we're actually not using it at all. How does it help us do it? Because its definitions, Kabbalah's definitions, and the principles that it explains to us, and the environment that it puts us in, all work exactly like the laws of nature that want to develop us. But we create them here, we recreate them here, and we use them here in the method, and this is what brings us out. Okay.
Okay, we have another one, and that's from Zoom. Nick is asking, what is the relationship between the creature and the physical body?
Well, the fact that we perceive the physical body, think and identify with the physical body, comes as a result of, how do you put it, the will to receive?
What is the relationship between the creature and the physical?
Oh, the creature and the physical
yes.
body. Okay, so the creature is the will to receive. The highest forces in nature, the governing forces, are their intentions. They are why we do something, for what reason something occurs. This is like something that we hold in our heart, really. There are two intentions like this that manage reality. One of them is an intention to bestow, that is to give, that is, it is thinking of acting on behalf of the entire system, for the other, for the well-being of the whole, always, continually. It never has another intention. The thing that's called the creature, you can call that force, that intention, that's the creator. But that's a scientific term, okay? It's not, it's not God. It is, you could call it that because it serves exactly the same function, but in terms of the system, it is what creates, develops, evolves, cares for. The creature is the opposite force. It's a force of separation. It doesn't connect things. It separates and partakes of things for itself, only for its own benefit. This intention brings about a perception of reality that tells us that we exist in a separate body, and that we have separate needs from others, and it confirms this reality for us. It reinforces it. And our society also acts this way, believes this way, and that further reinforces it. The creature is not a physical thing, and we actually aren't physical at all. But we see a reality according to what our intention is. When we begin to learn how to sense and even just initially have intentions like the opposite force, we begin to exit this reality momentarily, sometimes longer, until finally we are working like the upper force. And from that point of view, there really is no physical world. There is only, for what am I doing this? Today, science thinks of governing forces as like physical forces, mass, energy, those sorts of things. But those are all the creature. The entire universe and all matter is the creature. In other words, it's made up of various levels of this same intention to separate and to have a desire that serves myself. That's what creates the reality, and the opposite one creates a holistic, peaceful, total type of reality that can create a very different experience for the world, for ourselves, it's kind of like what's at the bottom of our heart, what we dream of attaining. That's what the opposite force to the creature is. But the creature is not a physical thing. The body comes because we have this intention.
We have a raised hand here.
A raised hand.
A raised hand from Karina.
Hope I can see it. You have to... Oh, there she is. Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much. So I have a question regarding the corrected intention. In terms of the quality of the feeling behind a corrected intention. Is one to reach unconditional love, or is neutrality okay? I'm not really sure in terms of my vibration, my energy, how I'm supposed to react to the corrected intention, because it's really hard for me to get to the level of unconditional love. So if I'm making a decision, could that decision, and I catch myself judging that decision. At the same time, if I know what the moral corrected decision I'm supposed to make, if I come to that decision from the point of neutrality without the attachment of unconditional love, because I'm not really sure what that even means at this point, is that acceptable in terms of the study of Kabbalah? And
Thanks. That's a great question. First of all, Kabbalah is a method, and it takes a person through many different stages. And we can't jump from one stage to another. We have to evolve in the same way that everything else evolves in reality. In your question, it's a correct question, but in the question there is an assumption that this is something. Well, let me say this first. Yes, it is unconditional love, but it's not something that we suddenly are able to do or that we are capable of doing at the moment. There are processes that we need to go through, and we need to go through them with other people in order to reach this. It's not something that we can do in general with the world. It really requires doing it with other students who have exactly the same goal. And this is, as you learn more about this, you'll see that you're going to be taken through stages in which you will have the opportunity to work in a simulator with other students that allows you to test out what your real responses to everything are, but in a very special context, in a context that's going to allow you to measure what your intention actually is. The goal is an unconditional love. That is, not that we don't feel angry, upset, hatred, disappointment, any of those things, but we're not thrown off the ability to still connect despite it. Nature does this. Nature connects everything. First of all, it created all the differences, but it also connects everything despite difference. Its whole purpose is the connection, despite the peculiarities and particularities of everything. So in order for us to be able to have this same attitude that the upper force does, we have to learn how to do this with other people. It's not really neutrality, but there are stages that we go through in order to reach this. One of them is neutrality, but not the way that you're defining it. I see that you understand, though, and this is important, that this is about a personal transformation. But be patient, because if you stick with this, with learning, you'll be given the opportunity to work in this way. And thanks for that question.
Okay, so Lincoln Hyde is asking, as we study and learn more, how do we actually know we are making any progress spiritually? If I cannot perceive the spiritual, then how do I know that I'm making any progress?
Well, it's unmistakable. The thing is that you need to know first what the target is. We can talk about the target, but one needs to actually be able to sense this. And we sense this target by a need. We sense it by not having it. We're dealing here with desires, and a desire, and we grow only by the size of our desire and the quality of our desire. What it's aimed at. Nature always works with us this way. You know, we have, and sometimes people say, "Well, I'm having a really bad day because everything went wrong." You know, I really wish it would go better than this. Well, this wish, whatever it is, whatever this deficit is in regard to, especially in regard to attaining something spiritual, you need that. It's the most precious thing in the entire process. The desire to want to be able to sense what it is, what the target is. Am I doing it? Am I not doing it? And the fact that we occasionally feel that we're doing it, and sometimes we feel that we're not even near it. This is so important for our progress. This is how nature works with us. It works with us by making us feel that we're not reaching something. But why is it doing that? It's developing a correct desire for the right thing. Now, how do you measure it? Again, this is something one begins to know that they're actually achieving it when they begin working past the principles that we're doing now. These are the fundamentals that people need to know so that they can begin working. But in that situation where we're trying to have that attitude towards others, between the students who are studying together, as the upper force has, there you can't fool yourself. You know when something is occurring. And it's not only something that is felt inside the person, it's also something that ultimately is felt amongst all the people doing that work. Because we're not really individuals. We are aspects of a system. That's the thing that's the perception we don't have. We don't feel that identification with others as self. Love your neighbor as yourself. We don't have that. That's just a, arcane biblical language type way of saying that this is a holistic system and it has a singular life that we all partake of. This is the thing that we're disconnected from and what we're connecting to. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, we have another one. I think this one comes from YouTube. It's a little related, I think, to the first question that you've answered.
Okay.
So how do we make this switch in perception? Is it done with the mind or with the feeling or some other way?
The switch in perception is done with everything that we have. But it's sensed in the heart. The mind is our reason is one of the principal things that is fundamentally connected to our egotism, to the opposite intention. So it's a tricky character. The mind is always looking for it's weighing things. It's always making calculations. What we need to do is to have enough questions answered, or even to swamp the mind. And there's plenty in Kabbalah that can swamp the mind, because there are real details about how we're structured, how we call them worlds, how reality is actually structured within us. And the mind cannot grasp this. It tries, like to the nth degree, we try to grasp it this way. But eventually we reach a point where the experience that we're aiming at is actually above reason. It includes it, but it's above that. But it works like this. Any perception of reality that we have is not one that somebody tells us about or one that we describe to somebody. Because what confirms reality for us is what actually appears in our heart and says, that's how it is. Unless that thing is felt in us in the same way that we feel anything else, like I love that person, but not because somebody told me to love that person. It is that way. This is the only way that we say that we have attained anything. It has to be in us as our reality. So it's done that way, but there's a method in order to allow us to do that. And it's a fail-safe method. I mean, there's all kinds of protection in that. It's done with great love, and we're not just making efforts on our own. The entire system of nature, the creator, that upper force, is actually managing all this. All we're doing is agreeing to act like the force of nature would like to develop us. The reason that we're seeing a lot of crises in the world is that everything else is dragging its heels and not wanting to align to see that way at all. Okay.
We have a live question.
Okay.
On Zoom from Maria.
Good.
So, let's see, Maria. Oh, okay, here.
Can you hear me? Okay. So, as I understand, all our desires come from the Creator. The question is, and I've been thinking about this as a way to rectify a desire, the desire to smoke. How can I rectify it into the will to bestow? Like this desire, there are many that I cannot find a way to share it or to bestow. I'm not hearing.
We don't correct our desires. As you said, all our desires arise in us from nature. They're planted in us. They're part of what evolves us. Bestowal is something that happens in relation to other people. Our job is to learn how to interact with our reality and with other people for their sake, and for the sake of the community that we're in, the system that we're in, ultimately, the entire reality. Just the desire to change why we're doing something, that's the thing that we're trying to correct, not the desire. We can't touch that. This is something in our nature. You could say it's like it's genetic, or it's like the way your body's built, or it's not something we can deal with. We deal with what is above the desire. Why am I doing? For whom are we doing what we're doing? Let's say, for instance, you were with a group of people and they were all smokers and they all wanted to stop smoking. If you made an agreement with each other that for the benefit of everybody else, you commit to stop smoking, and everybody does that, then your refusal to smoke, your stopping to smoke, becomes an act of bestowal to those people, because when they see you maintaining that commitment to them, it strengthens them, and they understand that they can't smoke for themselves. They have to begin not to smoke on behalf of everybody who's in this sort of pact. So it's not, it's a byproduct that the smoking stops, but that's not the goal in Kabbalah. We're not trying to correct anything. We're born, we evolve, whatever happens to us happens to us. What's under correction is the spiritual aspect of us, that part that's above the creature, above the will to receive. And by doing that, by having that other intention, that's how we incrementally grow more and more into that upper force. And that's what a correction is. The desires, what can we do? Nothing. It's how we receive the desires. That's Kabbalah means reception, the proper mode of reception of desire, and that's what we're learning. Thanks, Mario. It's a good question.
Okay, friends, we just want to let you know, if you want to toggle your view and see us on full screen, you can click the speaker view button that on the top right corner of the screen. Okay, so you can try that, and then you'll see us full screen, and that's called the speaker view.
Yeah, I see Colson.
Oh, do we have, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's go there.
Okay, let me, there we go. Hold on a second. Where are you? There you go. And, all right. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, what I've been trying to understand is, with respect to desires, the simple desire to receive the desires, if that makes sense, for the sake of bestowing pleasure to the Creator by receiving, for the sake of receiving pleasure to, let me start again. Receiving pleasure so that the Creator can observe that pleasure being bestowed to you. Is that a correct method of receiving to bestow? That is my question.
No, you have to experiment. You have to try it. It is good to observe yourself, so to speak, Kabbalah say, from the side. Watch that process, because it will increase your sensitivity to what you're actually doing. You'll be able to differentiate your will to receive. You'll see it in action. You'll understand how it runs you and so on. Now, yes, what you're saying about wanting to receive a pleasure in order to for the upper force to be fulfilled, because that's what it intended you to experience, and you're saying, yes, I will feel this pleasure only in order to fulfill you. That's the correct direction. And it's actually even just experimenting with it can give you a little bit of a taste of what it is. So yes, fundamentally, that's what you're looking for. That's a basic concept, and what we try to do as we develop is we try to do that in actuality, and really in relation to other people as well. But you're right to start that way, because the process that we have to go through has to be aimed at the upper force, let's say aimed at the Creator. But the way that we do it is we eventually come to do it through connection and through people. But as a starting point, that needs to be what we're aiming at. And we're aiming at, going back to one of the other questions that we had, it is a complete, we're looking for that to be whole, for not to be part. Because in spirituality, they're not partial, they're whole. But spirituality gives us, the upper force gives us awakenings, gives us insights. It lets us taste things along the way. It feeds us, it helps us, it points us. And if you can get something out of that sort of observation, it's good, it'll sustain you, and it'll help you along the way.
Okay, we have Matthew from YouTube. If everything we see is an illusion, how can I carry myself in the reality that I see? Can you give some examples, please?
How can I what myself?
Carry myself in the reality.
See, here's where your experience as you evolve becomes very important. Yes, this is an illusion, but it's not without substance. It's just a different substance. And this is not like science fiction, like where, all of a sudden, everything disappears. It's really that we don't understand what we're observing. And we give weight and importance to things that are opposite to the way that things actually function. But we're not talking about something, mystical that blows up reality. We're talking about how reality is constructed. Nature is evolving us to be able to perceive differently. We started in a certain place. I mean, you can go back to what created the Big Bang, and then why there's matter. Why the will to receive creates this hard matter, and then it evolves into a vegetative state of desires, and then it evolves into like animals and so on, and then we are kind of the crown of creation where all of those things exist within us. And it's not that we're taking what nature gave us, and opening it up, tearing a hole in it and going through it. We're being evolved to become like nature. So nature is actually holding us in this process. There's a strong basis of reality. The basis of reality is bestowal and what we call love, but it's not like human love, but it's that thing that holds everything together. It cares for us at every step. So when we say that it's an illusion, what we're saying is that we are in the process of a transformation, as we always have been. But now we're at the point of a really bold and big one, according to the human level. We are going to go to a place where we work with the governing forces, that they become our own sensations. So you can trust where nature has placed you. You can trust the fact that we're in transition, that it's natural, that it's necessary, and that you will be completely supported, even though there will be profound changes.
We have another question, live question from Mileda. I hope I pronounce your name.
Can you hear me? Hi. I'm thinking about the process of transformation and what time frame it takes. Is there a preset time frame or preset experiences that we have to live or wait for to really see that transformation in us?
Okay, well, that's a beautiful question. In general, the Kabbalists call it 6,000 years. But where are we? We're at the end. We're at the end of that. There is the natural evolution of the will to receive and of the creation, so to speak, the physical universe and all of the egoistic projections that we make. And they progress according to nature's clock. But what Kabbalah is about the hastening, speeding up this process by becoming like the force of nature that's developing us. So there's no real restrictive time frame in the method of Kabbalah. It's about acceleration. If we stay with nature's clock, that's when we encounter all of these sort of, these disasters. We get pushed by nature. We get forced to change. We're under tremendous pressure, just like planets are under tremendous pressure when they, in the planet building process, or that's the inanimate level of desire. It doesn't want to change. But the human or the speaking level, which is where we're going, it's not just human. It's the level in touch with the higher forces. We're not restricted by time. We speed up the entire process according to our own desire, the effort that we put into it, and our desire to be what nature wants us to be. So that can be very quickly. Not only that, we benefit from the work of everybody else, all other students or all other people who are working towards this goal and with this desire, because we're not individuals. So what we are actually doing is we're like parts of reality recognizing itself as a whole, and we're collecting that force that accelerates the development of everybody who's doing this work. And then we begin to work on behalf of the world and help it sort of speed along. It's actually our development that can take the world past these sort of terrible pressures that it's under now, because it's time for all of humanity to make this change. But it has to be a conscious change. Conscious means acceleration, working at it.
I have a personal question, Tony, for you. Okay.
You want to go outside and
Okay, Oliver is asking, I'm interested to know when and how you, Tony, found Kabbalah and when it started to become real for you. Did you dive head in, and did it all start making sense right away?
Well, I mean, everybody has a different experience with Kabbalah. No, it didn't make sense right away. But I have wanted it and sought it out for practically my whole life. I think since my early 20s. And I looked in a lot of different places. And you can always feel something, because nature is always giving you awakenings. You know, it's like, yeah, you want to go here, but you're a complete idiot? Okay, I'll give you something. You know, here, feel this. You know, and you think, okay, this is it, and it moved. You know, it moved me along. But it took a very long time to find a real teacher. I had several, but when I met Rav Lightman, then everything that I had sort of collected in my mind and in assumptions and so on, and it all sort of opened up and became. You could feel it as an actual thing. Like, yeah, this is actually life. It's how life is arranged. It ceased to be some kind of thing in the sky and something mystical and all that stuff. At least that was there at the beginning, and certainly a great deal of passion. But it still is a process for me, and Rav Lightman is my teacher, and the friends that I study with they're my teachers. So it is an ongoing process. It opens slowly and according to what's necessary. But, even if you get just a little bit of something in that, it's everything. I mean, it fills all of your needs at that moment because of that incredible loving care that comes from the entire system. It doesn't make sense. It's not about making sense. It's about being there, having the same attitude towards creation as the thing that created creation. That's what it's about. So when we feel echoes of that desire, this is more than making sense. It's profound. It's profound truth. And that's that's the thing that we look for. And it's beautiful because it's so deep and so extensive that it keeps showing us beauty. It keeps filling us with need. It pulls us along. I wouldn't expect to understand you in terms of the principles. You're gonna there's plenty to understand, and for a while you're gonna feel like a genius, because you're going to be able to see stuff in general that other people can't see and really wonder about. And they don't see how they're creating the problems in their lives or in their institutions or in their governments or all that, in their societies. And you will be able to see that. You'll be able to see it from a different point of view. So there's a point of a period of collecting a certain kind of new perception and knowledge, including when you start learning about how the worlds are, how they're built and understanding what they're about. And then it comes to the direct experience with your own intention. That's the thing to look forward to. But it's all wonderful. it's a process.
Okay, our next one comes from our Zoom chat, and Linda is asking, if there is none else beside him, then who am I? Is my point in the heart him, the creator?
I can answer that question with a yes or a no, but that's not the answer to the question. What you're asking is very important. It's a very, very fundamental thing, and it has to do with perception of reality. But you're asking with let's say an egoistic vessel, right? The answer that you want to receive is intended to go into a place of knowledge so that you can, oh, now I've got that figured out and I can go forward. But the answer to that question can never go into that type of a need. Let me answer it this way. And you will develop a completely different kind of need that the answer can go into. But you have to experience this directly. Yes, there's none else besides him, obviously must include everything if you just look at it logically. But the experience of that and what we do with that, that's a whole other thing. And it's complex, because a person can say, oh, there's none else besides him, so what am I worrying about anything? What's there for me to do? He's already going to do it. No, that's not how nature is evolving us. So what does it want from me? What does the upper force want from me? And how do I live in none else besides him? And in what situation, what are my responses? What are my responsibilities? And in this process, we begin to experience, yes, that there is none else but a singular living thing. And we more or less identify with it. But identification means realization. It means attainment. So the answer to your question is keep working at it. And it takes time. But that's what we're working towards.
I see there are some students who are looking for information about the upcoming courses. So is there a new course beginning soon, and how much does it cost?
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's, this course is that you guys are in is the first section of the Kabbalah Revealed interactive. There are other ones, but this because this is a self-study situation where you can move at your own pace. If you're not in this, if you're not one of the students who's already in it, you can in October. There is this same course is starting again. So, and I think they'll post in the chat where you can go to Kabbalah to sign up for this or to find out about it. By the way, there's a next step for the people who are in the part 1, and that's coming up soon. But you'll get information about that. You'll get an email explaining all of that and how you do it. But if you find this interesting and you want to learn about Kabbalah in a methodical way, then you can go to Kabbalah and you can sign up for this course. Now, what it costs? Well, it doesn't exactly cost it, but you understand that we are a non-profit organization. Our mission basically is to provide Kabbalah to anybody who wants to learn it, and but it costs us money to do it. We right now we have a campaign that's going on where it's a pay what you can kind of thing. It costs us like usually about $25 or something per person, considering all the technology, the staffing, and our other like hard costs. And everybody who works for us is they're a volunteer. They're like you. They're students who are helping other people learn. But we have this pay what you want because we don't want to stop anybody from being able to learn. So there's I think that if you on KabU, there's a banner there, and there are some options for what you can do. I think there's 24 hours left in this particular campaign. You can pay whatever you want, what you think it's worth to you. You could even help other students. Like maybe some people can't afford it, and we understand that. Don't let that stop you doing anything. Maybe you can help another student by paying your part or something, and something for someone else. But basically, think of your friends. Think of those who are putting this on for you. And if you can do it, do it. If you can't, we understand that, and don't let that stand in the way of your learning. Okay.
Okay. From YouTube, Beverly. I'm at the beginning of learning about Kabbalah. Is my desire to learn is an act of my own free will, or was it predetermined?
Yeah, great. By the way, I just got a message that says that that you will receive links in the chats for the information you need. Okay. What's the name?
It's sorry, Beverly.
Is it a free will?
You want me to read it again?
No, I got the question. I'm just sort of... Well, yes and no. The desire to fulfill your life and to evolve was placed in you. It came from the upper force. The response to it and what you do with it, this is your free will. Your free will is to find a place where this sort of point in you, this seed of a completely different desire, different kind of desire, spiritual desire, we call it, can develop. That's you. That's your free will. Finding a place where things can evolve. But the desire itself is a gift. The Creator gives that to all of us, and we find ourselves in a situation where we can either walk through that door or not walk through that door. And we're also free to walk out the door, But it brings us to a place that we come to recognize that this is our fulfillment. This is what the heart has longed for. This feels like truth, whatever. You have to go by that, or not. You have to. Don't let anybody talk you into anything. This has to be something that you feel. And if you feel that way, then that's partially a gift from the upper force, from nature. And your other side of the coin is what you do with it. Choosing to be in an environment that's going to help you evolve that. Because you know that if you just try to do that out in the world, I'll give it a week or two, it'll disappear. It'll get covered over by all the other things that seem so much more important. We're here, the beautiful subtlety of your heart, the sensitivity of your heart, to respond to this thing and say, this is the most important thing in life. That's a very rare gift, and it's a rare flower, and you want to protect that. And that's why you need a hothouse, like you need an environment that's going to help you with that. That's what the study is about. That's what it helps you do. And it's an environment that allows you to keep it alive and to grow it to its fulfillment.
Friends, we encourage you to ask live questions. We still have some time left, so try it. It feels really great. And for now, we have another one from YouTube. Bill it's a practical question. He's asking, can you suggest a lesson plan, preferably a video lesson plan, that will help me learn about and operate from a Kabbalistic state?
Yeah, sign up on KabU. There's an entire path that goes from learning the fundamentals, and you have to have the fundamentals. And then there's another level of a course in which there is more interaction, sort of half and half interaction with a teacher and with other students and so on. And it builds and it builds. And then we move into working not with just the fundamental principles that sort of turn your initial perception over, but we start working with Kabbalistic texts that is both the technical texts and the ones about how a person evolves and transforms. These are written by Kabbalists on the highest level, and we use this as a guide. Now, all of these courses involve some video, they involve some live interaction with the teachers, and also interaction with students. And it's a plotted out course that eventually takes you even to the point where you are in the most advanced class on a daily basis, if that's your desire. It's organized in Kabyu according to what you really need. And actually, you will evolve far faster by going through this plotted out course than you will by trying to collect materials, even our materials, and trying to arrange that on your own. The force of doing that and knowing that you're doing it with other people is very important and very necessary for you. That's why there are courses. Because we have a desire, but it's a teeny tiny desire. And we need to collect, to find others, and to collect this in order to change our reality. So that's the suggestion. Look for the courses, go through them in an orderly way on Kabyu.
We have another live question.
Okay, live.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Colson?
Colson? Okay.
Colson, yeah.
Hello? Okay. Yes, it's me again. Okay, so I was just pondering on something that I read either in one of the readings by Rav Lightman or in Kabbalah for the Student, one of the articles by Baal HaSalam, and it was on how Kabbalah comes to us. Either we just find it somehow in passing in our life, and then it comes to us in greater force later. And I was wondering if it would be correct to say that Kabbalah is as much a personal gift to us as it was originally to the great sages of the past. That is my question.
Is a single person, a single individual. What we think of as personal now is a seed of what identity is, but it's not actually our identity. But everything in Kabbalah is addressing a single creature. So yes, it's felt as very personal. And because nature is, you know those chess games, they're computer chess games, and you're playing against the computer, but you're not really playing against the computer. What you're doing is you're playing against the game of chess, because the computer is, it's the game. It's all of the pieces and all of the possibilities. It's not at all like that's what nature's like. Nature has its hand in each of us and is developing each of us, on this game board of development. So it will find us in a place, and we will feel it in the most personal sense, because it's addressing the essence of life, what we consider to be our core. And yet, it's also addressing the entire reality, because there really are no, there's nothing other than that real core that doesn't recognize itself as a whole thing. So all the patterns that happen in nature, they happen over and over again on every level. It's always doing the same thing. It's like a hologram. These 10 Sephiroth, these 10 forces that are always working and evolving with the core of our being and with all of reality, the same way that they work across history with Kabbalists, and they work with us individually in the most secret part of our desire and heart. So yes, it's exactly the same. Your evolution and its call to you and your response to it is precisely the same diagram as how we're evolved over history, so to speak.
Okay, so here we actually have a question that we have Josh from Kabbalah Forum and Dave and Patty that watch us on YouTube. And if I combine their questions, it's what is the relation between Kabbalah and religion, meditation, other spiritual paths?
Repeat it, please.
What is the relation between Kabbalah and religion, meditation, other spiritual paths?
Kabbalah is not religion. Religion deals with, it's a kind of a psychological thing that deals with belief and with having us sort of stay in a comfortable zone. Religion lacks direct experience. It's not spiritual. It's kind of like an orderly way of saying that there is such a thing as spirituality, but and it's all personal, and it deals with me and my situation, or me and my family, and me and my nation, and that kind of thing. Kabbalah is direct experience of what religion says exists. There's no meditation in Kabbalah. It's a very active thing that deals with the two basic forces. We don't try to get rid of the ego. We try to or still it down so that we become like a plant as far as our desires go. What we do is we learn how to use the dynamic exactly the same way that nature does. Our freedom does not lie in becoming less than what we are. Our freedom is in becoming what we actually are. We can free ourselves from a certain type of suffering by never doing anything or taking any chances or never eating anything or whatever. But that is not where nature wants to take us. Actually, a lot of these methods evolved out of Kabbalah, and because there was no direct, it wasn't open. And also because it was adapted in different cultures and societies. That is, there are very different people in the East. There are very different people in native people of North America. I'm talking about Aboriginal people. There are great differences in Africa and so on. And in the explanation of how Kabbalists explained how the wisdom was spread around the world, they say Abraham gave different gifts to his sons, and they went to different places, his sons being his students and so on. And this is how different cultures absorbed and took these things on. But those kinds of approaches are for times before all of humanity sort of sees itself as a collective and makes this huge leap in transformation. These are for times while the 6,000 years were happening, when reality is pretty much in concealment. They're not meant for the revelation of our true dimension that we live in. Meditation has purpose, has a purpose. It's good for the body. I went through all these things personally. You'll find that you'll go through many, many stages and awakenings, and you'll learn something from all of these steps along the path. But the science of the upper world is Kabbalah. It's how nature deals with humanity, and none of these things are used in it. It's done in full wakefulness, and it uses everything in reality without cutting off anything and connects it all.
Okay, we have an interesting question here from Stefan. So we gain enlightenment. Does it just go on forever? Surely we'll get bored and blow the whole thing apart again. What is the ultimate goal here?
Well, that's how the ego sees it. I mean, that's why we don't see a complete reality, and why we can never feel any pleasure that lasts, because our will to receive is intended to be limited. It's intended to drive us to look for something that isn't limited in that way. Enlightenment does not mean that we understand or get something and now we got it. It means that we function outside of that limitation, and the pleasure, so to speak, that we receive is completely unlimited. It doesn't get destroyed. We don't blow it up. We're not functioning by the type of rules that the will to receive has, that dominates everything in our experience, including the way that we think, how we imagine. Our imagination is completely dominated by the will to receive. We never imagine things from the point of view of the upper force, of that intention to bestow, because we haven't really tasted it. We're always doing things within this sort of limited dimension. Any sensation of the upper force is an eternal sensation. It's a complete thing. It doesn't require something else for its fulfillment. It doesn't look to it. It's unbounded. It doesn't have dimension of the sort that the ego imposes on things. So your premise really describes more the disappointment that we go through when we don't learn, when we don't have this attainment. But when we endlessly go in a cycle within the will to receive, Kabbalah takes us out of that. It allows us to escape that, that squirrel wheel, the mouse wheel, and that's a good reason to want to learn it. I know it doesn't seem like it's possible, but it is possible. And that's exactly what Kabbalah, what all the books in Kabbalah are talking about. The unbounded aspect of bestowal, of that other intention, of that opposite force that manages nature.
Brandon from Zoom, do the levels of correction have names? How will I know which level of correction I'm on? And without a mentor to help guide me, how do I know if I'm going left when I should be going right?
Darn right, you need a mentor. You need a teacher. You need to study with a real Kabbalistic teacher, or somebody trained, or an instructor trained by. You need to be in the lineage of Kabbalah. There's no way for us to know. First of all, it's very hard to know whether you're with a real teacher or not. You have to test it. But we need the guidance. Why do we need this guidance? Because that's how nature deals with us too. Nature, it completely guides everything. We just don't realize it. We don't see it. We have to be in a system that allows us to see that there is such a thing as this sort of ultimate guiding thing that's managing everything, and it's trying to take us along, and we need to come to agreement with it. So in other words, you have to have a teacher. You have to have a world. You have to have people that you're studying with. And by watching what's going on there, you begin to see how nature functions. You see how you're doing. You begin to measure it. Yes, there are names. Every level really has a name. It has a quality. It's actually a kind of an equation between the will to receive and the will to bestow. Those two forces that manage the universe and beyond it. And so every single one of those is a kind of a word or an equation. And that's what we're doing in Kabbu. We're providing you all of those things that allow you to learn, to progress, to measure, to be guided, and if you're going off, and to test everything. Kabbalah, you can't learn it on your own. Impossible. Because it's about the opposite of alone. It's about the reconnection of reality and the reawakening of reality in its true state. And it's not a bunch of individuals trying to take advantage of each other, banging into each other, or competing with each other. It is love your neighbor as yourself. That is actually the general law of nature. stated in the way that the human heart can feel it. That's the blueprint behind everything that happens. But that's what Kabbalah is for, so study.
Maria wants to ask it again live, so go there. Here is a hand.
Yes, there's Mario.
Okay.
Okay, I'll unmute Mario.
Okay. So, I went to the Naivaruk site, and it is stated that we can take great benefit from reading the book of Zohar. However, in order to understand it, we would need a preparation. But the offer is so wide that I don't know where to start. We have all sorts of books. We have Introduction to the Book of Zohar. We have commentaries by Rav Lightman. Can you give us some advice on where to start in order to take the most benefit of these classes that we are going through now?
There's a couple of things here. Let's just talk about books for a second before we talk about the right progression. There's books are important. Okay, the books that we have are organized in a specific way. They're serious books, but they're also arranged to have the kinds of things that people need in the preliminary part of in the preparatory part of the learning. And there's a package of books. What's it called? I've got a thing here. It's there are 3 books in this package, and you can see this. There's a banner on the site that explains these books, and they're important because they're orderly, right? There's Kabbalah for the student that has. Actually, you don't need more than what's in Kabbalah for the student, and it's a hefty book, and it's got preparatory materials to be able to understand the basis of Zohar, to understand the structure of the upper worlds, to begin to learn about them and to learn that terminology. It has articles in it that explain things in terms of the student's progress, the inner life of the student, how the personal transformation feels, what the forces are that the person is working with, and so on. Plus things that have to do with society and what we can expect to see as society becomes more and more corrected and ideal. Everything's in that book as far as what you need as a basis to begin to understand Zohar, but I'll get back to the Zohar in a second. Then there's the other aspect that talks directly to the heart, and this is Attaining the Worlds Beyond. This book is a collection of lessons over, maybe it's over about 5 to 7 years, of every morning lesson of the core group of Kabbalists at B'nai Baruch, what Rav Lightman said, and it's put together in an orderly way, and it's beautiful. It's very emotional. It speaks very much to the heart. It really can awaken stuff, awaken the sensitivity in the heart, and point us towards the right thing in us, and the right thing in others as well. And it's a really good companion to the work. Something, if I were going to, starting again, I'd read these in equal doses. Because you need this. You need this stimulation of the heart. A lot of Kabbalah appears to be quite technical. It's not really, but it seems very technical because, first of all, it's a science and there is a structure. But what we're attaining in the structure is like what's written in Attaining the Worlds Beyond. So that's the core of it. And then there's a third book in that package, and that's Kabbalah Revealed. It sort of recaps a lot of it deals with the fundamentals and sort of shows you a basic path. Now, This is because we're doing this event. I'm told that it's 20% off right now. You can get those 3 books. Now, those books, the reason they're there is because they're essential. They're really all you're going to need for several years. And without them, you're giving yourself a handicap. Now, the progression, get into the course, do the things that the course is asking you to do, go to the next course, do the things that that course is asking you to do, and you will come to the point where you will be able to understand how to work with the Zohar. But don't try to jump ahead. You won't get anywhere. You're going to confuse the heck out of yourself, and it won't be good for you. If you follow the regimen that's in Kabbalah, you'll be very quickly taken to the point where you'll be able to do this. Studying on your own is not a good idea. That's no Kabbalah study on their own. It doesn't work like that. They all Kabbalah study in groups because that's what the study's about.
Okay, from YouTube. There is a name I'm even afraid to try.
Okay.
Tony, you're welcome.
Oh, there isn't a chance.
Yeah.
Was viola fe.
Yes. Sorry. Is there a way to not reincarnate again?
Yes. What we call reincarnation, there's a personal end of correction and there is a collective end of correction. What does end of correction mean? It means to go where nature is evolving us. So if we come to the point where we finish this correction with the help of the study and with the help of other students, then the need to reincarnate is not there anymore. We reincarnate in order to complete this progression. But reincarnation is not the way that the ego tells us it is. Reincarnation has to do with intentions above our desires. It has to do with developing what we call a screen, the ability not to receive for myself, but to receive for the benefit, we say, for the Creator, that is for the whole of the system and for others. That the reason that we're receiving is because that's what nature wants us to do. This is a very high place, but it's attainable within a lifetime. Within a single lifetime, a person can reach this. That's what this study is about. Reincarnation means to fall back into our will to receive, and to continue from there to learn, to evolve out of it, and we eventually evolve out of it. But like I said earlier, we're trying to do that. Kabbalah is here to help us accelerate that process, and we're here to work on behalf of each other and to help all of us not to need to reincarnate, but to move to a very new sense of life, a very much more real sense of life.
Okay.
By the way, about how would you progress in order to learn how to deal? I'm talking about the last question. All you have to do is read the assignments that you'll be given, and that'll tell you that's what you should be reading, and what you should be studying, and you'll find that they are going to connect for you in a way that you're going to get it.
Another question from Zoom. I have a question about mahzam, this barrier separating one state from another. As I understand, it begins a spiritual ascent, but what internal state change meditates it?
What change? What's it? Mediates it.
Mediates. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mediates. Yeah.
It's the screen. The barrier. Well. The barrier to the spiritual world is the steady state of an intention to bestow. That is a sensation of connection with others on their behalf, for behalf of the whole, me included in that. I don't mean me, Tony, I mean me, you. But that it becomes basically a steady state where everything that we do is aimed at that. Not just the external actions, but for whom we are doing things always remains in the realm of bestowal. What's bestowal? What's reception? You have to discover this. You have to try to find what those things are. But in principle, that's the barrier. The spiritual world is made of connections. We say the Creator is not in the individuals. The Creator is what connects everything, despite the sensation of individuality. When that's how we experience and why we experience anything, when we choose to do that, or when we work in such a way that we attract the upper light, this is something very important to understand. We don't do this, we say the help of the friends, it's the upper force that's helping us. Nature actually comes at a certain point. When our desire is strong enough and correctly aimed, we are somehow, according to its beneficence, its desire to evolve us to where it's taking us, we begin to be able to do this. Where we pass that barrier, we're no longer functioning in this world the way that we see our societies functioning. We're functioning for the world, where we're acting just like the force of nature, taking care of everything else. That's what's in our heart all the time. That's also, in our development, that's also called the screen. This sort of anti-egoistic intention that doesn't take desire into the vessel, like, I got this for myself, and it disappears, like that question before about we're just going to blow it up and start all over again. It is an intention that sits over that egoistic desire, that when the pleasure comes, it goes right back at you. And the pleasure is felt not in the egoistic aspect of reality, but it's felt in the aspect of us that understands, feels, and identifies with this bestowal. So individually, a person reaches spirituality like that, and collectively, when we work collectively like that, we pass the barrier into what we call spiritual world or spiritual desires.
From Zoom chat, how can we attract light while we're at work or doing other daily stuff? And how can we stay connected?
First of all, you have to establish a proper connection with others doing this. You can observe yourself, out in the world, but you can't attract the light in the world. You can only do it in the study, while you're studying, while you're working with texts. And that's like, why am I here? Why am I studying with this? What's the reason for me doing this? When you notice that you're, like, look around you on Zoom, or, wherever you are, look at these faces, look at all these people. These people have the same desire. They see the same reality, that you thought you were the only one in the world, and it was very lonely, and you try to talk to somebody about this, and they go, what are you talking about? Every one of you have this same thing inside of you. And this is the place, this is the simulator, this is the place where light can be attracted, with you recognizing that that reality is changing. You're not alone. This desire is expanding and becoming something very real in the world, and eventually it will swallow the whole illusory world, and it'll be like that thing that's in you. The attraction of the light comes through observing this, connecting to others, learning how to connect with others, and especially right now, at the stage that we're at, it has to do with working with the Kabbalistic texts and with this desire that you have. Doesn't matter if you don't understand. better if you don't at this point, because you're already now in touch with what we call spiritual objects. You wouldn't be here, if you weren't already feeling it. You just don't perceive what they are or what their dimension is or how to do it, but you're in it. And not knowing what they are, but desiring to know what they are, listening to these definitions that you will eventually learn, working with the principles that we're talking about even now at this first stage of basic concepts, and your heart wanting to know. This is the most important thing in the whole process. This desire, even against your ego saying, it's never going to work, it's just another one of these bullshit. That is what is going to attract the light. You keep working over that, against that, and with other people. And the light pulls us, and we begin to understand because it wants us to.
Silvana from Facebook, she's asking, is it not practicing that we should improve rather than just studying?
Well, we don't call studying the same thing as like, I'm looking in a book, I'm taking a test. That's not really what it is. Study means immersion into this force, seeking it out, making it a way of life. It is a practice. Right now, it's not, because right now you're just working with the fundamentals. But if you stay with it, it'll be nothing but practice. You will be working with other people, and there'll be plenty for you to do. Once it starts happening, things become a little more clarified. You scrutinize it, and you start to see, oh, look what's happening in me. Look, I'm seeing this in my relation with others and all that. Then it becomes a constant practice. You're constantly measuring the quality of where you are against the goals that the Kabbalists present. That's one of the two great things about Kabbalah. One, the definitions are amazing. The definition of spirituality is the only place you're going to find a definition of spirituality. Spirituality is this quality of unbounded bestowal, and it is over against another force, a force of reception. Bestowal, and achieving that is spirituality. It's not vague. It's just hard to detect, but it's not vague. And it's constant. It becomes very, very practical. It becomes something you're going to find yourself doing all the time, and it's a practice. And I forgot the other thing that I was going to say, but I really want to say it, but I can't.
We actually have a very short question, but we can spend another couple of hours answering that. How do we bestow?
By doing what the Creator wants us to do. By becoming like nature. Does that sound easy? First of all, we're built to do that, but it's a process. It's not, this is not a self-help, instant gratification thing. It's a science. It's a method. It's you can say it's ancient. It is what life is. It's like learning what life is. So how do we do it? That's what you're here to learn. You have to experiment. You have to try. You'll eventually get there if you want it. Nobody can tell you how to do it, but we can help you. Kabbalists can help you build a situation for yourself. Arrange your situation so that you can learn it. I can't tell you. I could say something. It wouldn't mean a darn thing. This is a process. You tell me one other worthwhile thing that that you're good at, that you've ever learned. Let's take an art for instance. What is singing? Singing is like making a beautiful sound right from your heart that moves other people, that seems magical, that feels beautiful. Do it. You have to learn. You have to learn to hear. You have to find where the pitch is in you. You have to try and try and try. And this is the same thing. This is the art of life.
Okay, friends, we are getting to our last question. We have many questions here, and we really encourage you to ask them all in the forum. But we're running out of time. So our last question will be life. We have, where is that? Let's see. We have one live question here. Sheldon, I think. Sheldine, yes. That will be our last question.
Okay. Hi, Sheldine.
Hi. Okay. I wrote my question down so I could get it out properly. So my question is about dreams. Are our dreams just as real as this world's illusion? And are dreams another way to investigate our progress? And what does dreaming mean to Kabbalists?
I'm trying to think, not what the answer is, but how to answer you. You can't. This world is a kind of a dream. Our waking state is a dream, and it includes our dreams. Our dreams are a pale shadow of our waking dream. They have no more in them. As a matter of fact, they have far less in them than our waking reality. So the primary thing that we need to learn about is how to wake from the waking dream. Our guidance should come from the evaluation of the quality of our heart in relation to others. There's nothing else we can judge ourselves by, because if we try to imagine reality without a fixed point, something that doesn't change, we can never determine what's real and what's not real. There's only one thing that doesn't change, and that is the giving force, the always and only unconditional giving of the upper force of nature. That's the backdrop of reality. Everything else that happens against that backdrop, like these books here. That is the ever-giving force. Everything else is more or less that. But you have to be able to measure against something that doesn't change. And then we begin to see what's real and what's not real. Our dreams are phantoms. They can't tell us anything. We have to turn in the other direction and look at what nature is. Because everything else is a sliding scale. So how can you determine it from a dream? I would say that when your dreams, this is, I've heard from my teacher, when your dreams reflect your work in Kabbalah, when you start dreaming about your friends, about the texts, and so on, then they're meaningful. Until then, they're just cotton candy compared to the real direction that we should be pointing. The positive thing about them is that they often contain awakenings. You're dreaming, but you're awakening. What do I mean by that? They have in them inspiration. They can make you feel, they can pop something into you that you say, now I want to seek something out in my life. Now I feel capable of doing something in my life. They're like our inner life. They don't have the limitations that we put on ourselves in this world. We're sort of free, and they tell us something about our inner life. They tell us, they're a little model that says the world is not real the way we see it. So you look at a dream, and anything can happen in a dream. It's true in our waking state as well. But not because anything can happen, but because we evolve to a place where things are actually created. We become like that. So the positive thing is the inspiration that it may give, but there's no direction in them. So that's a great question, and I understand why you're asking it. Life is very beautiful. It's much greater than what we think. You guys are doing incredibly well. Thank you for all of these questions. Thank you for being so active. We can feel you very clearly, and this is so amazing. I can also see you. That's something. I can't see you folks on Facebook or on YouTube, but we know you're there too, and thank you for your questions there. Let me see. If your questions didn't get answered, right? If you had one, maybe you were shy, or you put it into the into the chat, and we didn't get to it. We're going to try to answer these questions on the forum in KabU. We'll give information to people in the chat on YouTube and Facebook about where they can go to get their questions answered. And if you found any of this interesting, or if it pulled at your heart, learn, study. The world needs you. It needs as many people as possible thinking and feeling on behalf of the world in general. And this is the way to do it. This is the way to learn to love your neighbor as yourself. We had 250 people with us tonight. It's a big force. Thank you very much. From us to you, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.